Today, I'm pouring up another mask order. We got a mask order from a gentleman who wanted to have this mask, and the mask is, as you see the picture come up on the screen, is from the first episode of the 1964, I believe it was 64, maybe it was 63, I'm starting to lose track now, brilliant TV show called The Outer Limits. If you're a younger person and you've never heard of The Outer Limits or you've never seen it, it is one of the godfathers of science fiction on television. You may have heard of The Twilight Zone, great show too. But The Outer Limits was really good, non-campy, serious science fiction that many of the issues they discuss topic-wise are still very current to this day. I won't go into it because it'll get political probably, because people make politics out of everything, but the show really had a lot of things to say about human nature. So it's a great show, and so The Galaxy Beam was the first episode, and you know, for being a first episode or even being a last episode, it was absolutely great. It's one of my favorites. And you should watch it. It's called The Galaxy Beam, and that's what this mask is from. Now, the original mask was worn by an actor, of course, and to get the effect of this being made of radio waves to be effective on camera, what they did was they made this mask, and it was painted a dark brown, as it turns out. I always thought it was black, but Rich told me no, that it was brown. He sent me specific colors. He asked me if I could paint this mask the colors it was actually painted and make it glossy, which I'm going to try to do. Because what they did is they had that mask painted dark, and they put, I think, glycerin on it, a bunch of really wet stuff, and that made it real shiny. And what they did is they spotlighted it with a lot of different spots all the way around it and shot it under high intensity lights on film, and then they printed it backwards, so it was a negative. This is the kind of clever stuff they did back then, and it really works, and it holds up to this day. I mean, it's a fantastic effect, and they did a great job of actually, in a lot of cases, sort of matting them into things. And so that's what he wants the mask for. He wants the mask to reflect the actual mask as it was used on TV. And what we're going to do when we have the mask, and you'll see the paint job and everything in the other SNG shorts that we do, we're going to also go into the editor in Adobe Premiere and print it backwards so it's a negative and see if it actually works. I'm sure it will. It's going to be really cool. It's kind of like going back in time and going through the history of cinema. And that's what we do here at SNG, even in the SNG shorts. So I just poured up the rubber, and the rubber you can see sloshing around here. And this is very, very high grade rubber I get from Vermin Industries, and it's going to sit in this mold for about 3 or 4 hours. It gets nice and thick. This is a plaster mold, and this, by the way, is the original mold, Rich. If you look, you can see the two parts. So it's not a one-piece mold. He was concerned. He did not want a casting made from the production mold because he's quite aware of how things work. And when you make a master, and I have one over there, that we make new molds off of course, the master shrinks a bit because it's latex. So you make a mold on it, and you pour it up, it shrinks a little bit more. So he wanted it to be as close to the actual size as possible, and that's what you're going to get. Because the original was made out of latex. So I thought you'd get a kick out of seeing this. What I will do after 3 hours is pour all this rubber out, back into the bucket, and it will drain, and then it will gel, and then tomorrow it'll dry all day, and then on Wednesday we'll paint it. We are back to the T51 Cooper. You'll remember this build before grandchildren happened, Christmas happened, a zillion orders happened that I had to fill, and all kinds of other stuff. And in fact, at 1 o'clock, I have an interview with a men's magazine who interviewed Doug Jones. You will know who Doug Jones is from The Color of Water and Star Trek Discovery. He plays Suru. He's an old friend of mine, and we originally started being friends together back a long time ago, in the 80s, early 80s. He did a Worlds of Wonder commercial for Pamela the Talking Doll, and that led to him working on Mac Tonight. And they're interviewing me about Mac Tonight, what that was like to work on that with him and develop the character and do the mask that we did for that famous McDonald's character. So, yeah, it's busy around here. I'm very grateful. You'll recall that, well, I'm going to move in closer. You will recall the T-51 Cooper. This is from 1959, and this is the body that I'm currently working on. And this is, I think, the second or third pass. And you know how I did this. I started with a rough form. This was made out of foam, like this. And I used cross sections. This one was too big. The scale was off, but you can see how I get the basic structure started. And then I put fiberglass on it and epoxy resin, and we get this. Then I make a mold off of that, and we produce a hard body out of solid resin, and I carve it up and add all the details and scribing to get this. And from that mold, I poured up another body, mold made off of that, and pointed up. And this one's hollow on the inside and evenly hollow, and I'm going to put the mounting points, the little shaft sticking up, can't remember the name of it, there and there, where the screws pass through to hold the frame and motor into the body. And then I'm going to mold this. I'm going to mold it from the outside. All these areas will be plugged up, and then we're going to flip it over, remove all the stuff, and Vaseline up everything that's exposed to the silicone mold, and pour in more silicone behind it. And what that will create is a core to fit inside, so that every time I make one of these, I just pour, I don't have the mold handy for some reason. It should be in this box. Anyway, I pour the material into the mold, and then I press down in the plug, and that makes every one of them come out evenly cast this way with the mounting posts. And then this will be like little tissue thin areas of resin that you just carve away with a knife and file. So also here's the mini plugs. I have quite a few of these. These are for vacuum forming the windscreens and lots of parts. Here's the masters for the molds that were made, and the master of the steering wheel. So I've got everything together here except the molds, which I'd like to show you. But what I need to work on now, and I'm going to be working on over the next few days, is finishing this. I also have to make for the intakes, there's a cover that goes here, and that's what I'm going to work on next. Now, here's the body mold that this was pulled from. This was the second pass. And it's one piece, and you just pull that straight out. So to demonstrate what I mean about making a plug, we're going to have a mold off of this, which will look very similar to this, and this will go back inside, like so. Boom. You got to say boom. All right. But this will make it make more sense if you're having a problem figuring it out, as many of us do when we're first getting into this stuff. You see that it fits back in there rather precisely. So now, if I was to put Vaseline, which is a natural release for silicone, because silicone will stick to itself, and then I Vaseline up the contact areas, and I put in Vaseline along here, a couple of keys maybe, and then I pour more silicone inside of this. When it sets up and I pull it out, I've got a core. And so every time I pour one of these up, the body will come out like this every time. And so I don't have to slosh it, which takes a lot of time, it's a lot of labor, which drives the price up of the kit. So that's what I'm going for. And as you can see, I got a lot of stuff to finish off and tweak before I make that next mold. So this came out very well. I got the blister in there, cover for the intakes, and that came out really well. I just shaped it out of styrene and put it on. It looks like it's really sticking out there a long way, but it actually is on the actual car. And I noticed from from version to version of this car, because basically the Cooper T51 was kind of a build your own car. They sent you everything in a box and you kind of put it together, from what I've been told by the historians. So they varied a great deal, which explains why, looking at the pictures as I have been, well, that doesn't look right, because in that previous version so they're all slightly different. So, you know, I have some latitude here, but everything's pretty well pointed up now. And so I just got to do a little bit on the inside, where I grind away down here to make that more even. I'm just going to take some of this Bondo glazing putty, get that in frame just right. This is Air Cure car body glazing and spot putty, and I like this stuff a lot, because after you've done some carving, some dinging around, you can go, I'm really zoomed in tight here, so I want to go on the inside there. Now, one thing that always happens is a lot of the liquid comes up to the top, so what I do is get a paper towel, take some paper towel and get rid of some of it, get down to the thicker material. Unfortunately it gets wasted, but I prefer it when it's thicker like that, and I can get in there and fill in that stuff, and then tomorrow I can sand it down and it'll be somewhat smooth inside. Because when you get this body, I just want it to be really clean and nice to your eye, from the inside as well as the outside. So this also helps. So that's just really a nice body now. I don't have any issues with it. And tomorrow we'll sand this all out, and we're going to make the posts to mount the frame. And I'll bring in the frame tomorrow so I can make sure that I don't put them in the wrong spot. I need a little tiny bit there, and there's always a little tiny bit. I could do passes on these things forever and never be completely satisfied, but the windshield is going to cover this area for the most part. And after all, we're not scale electric with companies making us metal molds and stuff. This is all done old school, all by hand. But I think this really looks really nice. Did I say really enough? So that's going to do it. So that's going to do it today. Really glad to have this far along. We'll be looking at doing the mold this week, and I will include that in SMG Shorts, because they kind of become longer when I do that, but I know you guys are enjoying it. I can tell by the emails and by the all the likes and everything. And geez, thanks again. I know I thank you all the time, but you deserve being thanked, because we're up over, last I checked, 4,020 subscribers. My goodness. And you guys have been hitting the like button more. I noticed since I asked. It was Mary's idea. She said, have you been asking them to hit the like button? I said, well, no, I really haven't. So she said, well, ask them. And you've been doing it. You've responded. So it's very much appreciated. And don't be afraid to make suggestions and ask questions, especially regarding things that I'll be making for our slot car hobby, as well as our mass collecting hobby and all the rest. I am going to start on the tire barriers tomorrow, so we'll cover that. See you tomorrow.